Alright, so in the clip I'm about to play, you are going to see a pro-Trump Republican make an absolute fool of herself on British radio. She's come on LBC to argue about free speech and how it's under attack. She provides no evidence supporting her claim, and when faced with clear evidence about how free speech is under attack in the US, she denies the evidence of her eyes and ears. It's all very 1984. Let's watch this clip together and then I'll give you my 2 cents at the end.
Let's talk about J.D. Vance. He is in town, he's in Kent, I believe it is, at Chevening, the Grace and Favour mansion for the Foreign Secretary David Lammy, where he's spending a couple of days before holidaying in the Cotswolds with his family. He's had another dig about the lack of free speech, as he sees it, in the United Kingdom, saying he has raised concerns, and will continue to, that the West, including Britain, is censoring rather than engaging with different opinions. You might remember he's previously suggested that free speech is under threat in this country. What on earth is the bloke banging on about? Dr. Jan Halper-Hayes is a former consultant to Donald Trump's presidential transition team in 2016, former chair of Republicans Overseas UK. Jan, great to have you with us here on LBC. What's J.D. Vance talking about? He's got this bugbear, hasn't he? Got this chip on his shoulder about Britain having lost the right to free speech. What is he talking about? Morning.
Well, good morning. It's funny that you think that he's taking a dig. Do you not think that when an 82-year-old man is arrested for posting something on Facebook, that is not a form of censorship?
Well, it depends what he posts, doesn't it? Depends if it's legal.
Well,
what did that 82-year-old man post?
Well, let's back up a minute here. If we are starting to scrutinize everything that someone says, if we're arresting them because it is hate speech.
What is that? You mentioned a specific case there. What is it this 82-year-old was arrested for?
Honestly, I can't remember, but what I do remember...
You're telling me that it's outrageous that an 82-year-old man was...
Back up a minute.
No, sorry, this is important because you just said this is an example of free speech under threat in the UK, but you can't tell me what he was arrested for.
I don't remember the exact...
So why are you bringing it up then?
I brought it up as an example that if we are scrutinizing what an 82-year-old man posts on Facebook...
But you can't assess that without knowing what he said, can you?
Well, you know what? Let's just say I brought up a wrong example because I don't have the context
Could it possibly
right
be
now.
Because it's all a load of nonsense and free speech isn't under threat in the UK at all, which I think you've just demonstrated respectfully?
You know what? I've been there I've lived in the UK for 24 years. And yes, I do believe that censorship, it started with political correctness.
Right.
And as political correctness moved from accusing people of microaggressions and then people getting triggered over what somebody said, it has been a form of putting a speech straitjacket on people.
So what can't you say in the UK right now without being arrested that you think people should have the right to say?
You know what? That's a very good question.
It is. Thank you.
It is. I can't answer that question, and I can't give you an example exactly. But see,
so
what I
find
interesting.
Sorry, Jane. You've given me an example of free speech being under threat. You can't tell me what the person said.
Well,
I've asked you for one single thing that you can't say in the UK without fear of being arrested, and you can't think of anything. It's because Britain still is a country, compared to the United States, by the way, where free speech absolutely exists and always will.
Well, we both see it differently then.
But you can't give me any single point of evidence whatsoever to back up your idea.
Why don't you give me an example of how free speech still exists and censorship is not there?
Because you don't get arrested by the police for saying anything that isn't incitement or hate speech in this country. People are free to express their opinions. People are free to give their views. We do not have a police state in this country, unlike, I might say, the way that the United States is going under Donald Trump.
Well, that's interesting because it's not going that way with Donald Trump. It was going that way, and it's now reversing itself.
Right. So banning journalists from the White House because you don't like what they've written, demanding the impeachment of judges because you don't like what they've ruled, sacking government officials because they've dared to criticise you at any point in recent years, defunding universities because they're not doing what you do, threatening law firms if they don't toe the party line, defunding media organisations that you think are against you, arresting students because of what they've written on social media, and ramping up checks of people entering the UK to check they haven't posted anything on Facebook that you don't like, doesn't amount to any sort of attack on free speech.
That's really twisting things without the specific
facts.
examples. You're giving
They're facts.
No, you're giving examples the same way I gave the example
But you didn't
of the
give any examples,
82-year-old
and I've just given
man.
you 10.
No, you've just given me a very biased perspective.
Bias is facts. All of those things have happened. Which of those haven't happened? Have journalists been banned from the White House under the Trump administration?
Have journalists been banned, or have they brought in alternative media that presents a different
I'm not talking about
angle?
Have journalists from organisations like the Associated Press been banned by the White House, yes or no?
Yes, they have.
Right. Have judges been threatened with
But wait a
impeachment
minute.
because the White House doesn't like their rulings?
Wait
Yes
a
or
minute.
no?
Let's not do it that way. Let's go back to
Because the
that.
answer's
And
yes.
why were they? Why were they banned?
But so we accept. Right? Are we accepting that all the things I just suggested have happened?
If you don't let me finish, then we can't really have a conversation here because you've got a very biased perspective
I'm not
here,
biased at
a
all.
very angle.
I'm giving you facts, and I'm just asking whether you recognise that those things are true.
No. You know what? It's so interesting. Did we not have a bunch of fake news here? And in the U.S., we did. And why? Why did we have fake news? Because it was biased and it was wrong. And so that is one of the reasons. You're listing 10 things and cutting me off.
Right.
But then why was the Associated Press no longer welcome? Because they gave fake news that has been proven. But
Jen, you coming on the national radio station here on LBC and saying an 82-year-old man being arrested is an attack on free speech without having a clue what he's actually said is not fake news at all.
It's not. It's not that I haven't had a clue. I can't remember the specifics.
Right.
But the fact that.
But how can you know it's an attack on free speech if you can't remember what he'd actually said?
Well, it's very interesting because you started this off by saying J.D. Vance had a dig. And so we don't get to have an intelligent discussion about whether there really is censorship going on, if people are afraid to speak out.
But he has had a dig, and that's his own language. He said previously when he talked about the UK...
No, you called it a dig.
Well,
He made a statement. He made an observation.
His language previously, I need to beat up on the UK. So don't try and tell me that he's not having a dig when he himself has admitted that he, as he put it, needs to beat up on the UK. We've got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Neve, for coming on. Jan Halper-Hayes, former consultant to Donald Trump's presidential transition team in 2016, former chair of Republicans Overseas UK.
So as you can see, completely deluded, completely crazy. Let's just get to the facts though. Free speech is not under threat in the UK. It never has been, and it's very unlikely to ever be. In fact, almost all of the media in the UK is controlled by right-wing billionaires who constantly platform some of the most disgusting or delusional commentators I've ever seen. Instead, the free speech debate is quite simply a far-right trope that has persisted for years. In fact, since, as she said herself, since political correctness came out. But let's not forget, political correctness is really a euphemism for not being a racist bigot. Until political correctness was a thing, it was far more prevalent to be completely obnoxious about people of different ethnicities, sexualities, and whatever other protected characteristic people wanted to be mean about. And people who should know better than to spread the lies that free speech is under threat, such as the Vice President J.D. Vance, such as the leader of Reform UK Nigel Farage, such as insert right-wing politician. They do it because they know that the people who believe right-wing ideas are largely extremely gullible, and they'll pretty much believe anything they're told, especially if they agree with the bigotry of the person telling them. And to be frankly honest with you, I don't know why Jan Halper Hayes was invited on the show, other than to create some sort of viral clip. She, like most people on the right, and particularly the insane MAGA hard right, whether in the UK or the US, don't believe in facts, they don't believe in evidence, and when presented with them, they prevaricate, lie, or move the goalposts. So it's pretty pointless having a discussion with them. And you're noticing this more and more and more in the UK, and in the States, of course, where it's completely taken over. And wild clips like this might be entertaining, but they're not really productive. And I would say, although Ben won the battle of the debate, the fact that she was invited onto the show means that MAGA level stupidity won the war, because it keeps being normalized, and it shouldn't be. These people should be banned from all of these platforms. If you enjoyed this video, I'd be really grateful if you could like, comment, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel to grow. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.